Behroz is with me. He is my class fellow, and we have been working together. We studied together for the bachelor's, and he has been working as a data engineer for over a decade now. And welcome, Behroz.
Thank
Maybe you
you.
could introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Behroz Sikander. I studied with Asif in Pakistan. So we both did computer engineering together. Afterwards, I worked a little bit in Pakistan and then I moved for higher studies in Germany. And yeah, then spent the next 2 years, 2.5 years doing my master's in computer science from Munich and then started working at SAP. And since my main focus was on big data during my higher studies, so I then in SAP, I also joined the big data team there. And then for the next 4 years, I helped basically SAP build this. SAP has a platform called BTP, Business Technology Platform. And within this, there's a big data platform powering basically apps on top. And basically, we built Spark, Kafka, Cassandra, Hadoop as a service there for 4 years. Then I moved to an AI unit internally. And there I helped them with the architecture, security, data engineering. And I spent there again 4 years. And then I moved to the knowledge graph team, which is nowadays powering also Joule, SAP Joule. I spent there roughly a year, and very recently I moved from Germany to UAE, and here I'm also part of an AI company where I'm helping basically do local businesses do AI transformation.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the detailed introduction. And it seems like you have a lot of experience in mainly data and AI space, and that's what I work with as well. And it would be fun. We would talk a little bit more about it, and we share what you're doing and how your journey is evolving. I don't know, how did you end up in the data space? I mean, we did the bachelor's as well. I also
Yeah.
end up in the data space, but I'm curious, why data? Why not something else actually?
Yeah, this is very interesting. So I started in desktop app and web app space. And when I came to Germany, initially all my student jobs were also in this space. But I very soon realized that the amount of people who are in this domain, there was a huge saturation there. So I wanted to basically separate myself a little, just to broaden my market. And then I thought, okay, what is of interest here? So then when I started to work in data a little bit, I realized that this field is very interesting. This is a little tough, a little different from the usual domain. And then I started taking different courses in my university. And then I did my minors in big data. And from there onwards, I just really liked the field. And then I just went with it. And then over the years, I was lucky because then due to the AI, this whole basically field became super popular. And now basically, so now I really like it. And the good thing is that everybody focuses on the AI part, but rest of the 80% around AI is all data. And then there are less people focusing on data, more people focusing on AI. So this basically, I always have something in every company, in every team, more or less, I have some place there.
Now, I had the kind of the similar experience after the bachelor's. I was working for a company, and somehow within the company, I got an opportunity to work on Spark and a distributed system as well. That's where I got interested. Oh, okay, there's a whole separate field of distributed data processing and data engineering, and that's how I chose my master's to be in the data engineering as well, and then I went that route as well. Nice. And how do you see that over the years you've been working in the data space? Do you see it has changed a lot? I mean, we are not that old, but back in the days, I haven't worked a lot with Hadoop, but a little bit, but then it went towards more Spark. And I worked my thesis my thesis was around Apache Flink as well. But you have worked on a lot of technologies, and has it changed a lot over the years, or?
So what I would say is that it has definitely changed a lot. So when I was when I was in my university, I was working on Apache Hema, which was also similar to what Apache Spark was trying to do. And so at that time, Apache Spark was also not too mature. It was picking up, but now it is one of the main distributed processing engines. So even though the engines are the same, but the way basically we use the technology has changed. So previously we used to deploy everything in-house in our own clusters, do cluster management, all of that stuff. Now the clusters have been commoditized completely. So now they are in the top 3-4 vendors in the hyperscalers plus on Databricks. Everything else is commoditized. and nobody wants to manage their own cluster. So you just like a virtual machine, you spin up your clusters and just do your job. So it has previously it was a combination of data engineering plus managing the infra. Now it is more focusing on the real business value, more apps, and less on the infrastructure layer. So look, companies like Databricks, they're doing a very good job. AWS, Microsoft, Google, they are doing a good job in this space. That you just with a button click, you just get a cluster and you just spin up and then do your job. So I think there definitely it has changed, but the engines are still there. I think the use cases are still the same, batch and streaming use cases. So there, I think it's okay. But I think it has also evolved in, for example, how we manage the data lakes, for example, with this Apache Hudi, Iceberg, these formats. There, it has evolved a lot. But yeah, I would say it has changed in some aspects. In some aspects, it's still the same.
But you have been working mostly on the kind of the tooling layer, but you're not developing a lot of application on top of it. Or have you been working with that as well?
So in the first 4 years, I was basically on the tooling. So we basically built Spark as a service with 99.99% uptime, and then at that time I was not building any application. I was just basically in some cases also contributing to Apache Spark, contributing to other open source systems. But then I realized that since it's being commoditized, less and less jobs are in this area. So then I went on the application layer, and then after 4 years I moved to the application layer, and then I joined these AI teams where I was helping them with writing data pipelines. And from there onwards, I was just mainly doing data pipelines.
Okay. But I mean, it's question. So you work with SAP, you guys built your own platform. I mean, I myself haven't ever used a SAP platform because I have been working a lot with Databricks and Snowflake. But how do you compare these? Obviously, you have worked a lot on this platform, and maybe it's your brainchild compared to Databricks and Snowflake.
So I think it boils down to, I would say, maturity. The thing is that companies like Databricks, they full-time do data platform and focus on just one thing. And they have teams of thousands of people doing this. And we were a team of 30 people basically building the whole big data infrastructure, right? So this is not comparable. So that is why you lack features. So for example, we cannot develop as fast as they would go. So we would have to do open source contributions, manage in-house force, for example, then manage, for example, 10,000 VMs also on top, right? So this was a lot of work. So the maturity was always a problem. So that is why companies like SAP also, they always think about, for example, build versus buy decisions, because this is not their core business, right? So they could always go back and get something from the hyperscalers. So I think I would say that companies like Databricks, Snowflake, they have much more mature platforms than what we would have some in a company like SAP, because within a company like SAP, you normally have some niche platforms which are focusing on the targeted use cases within the company. So not as general service as you would have on Databricks, for example.
Yeah, that's true. When I've been doing a lot of projects with our company 10 Plus on Databricks and a little bit on Snowflake as well. But it seems like a lot of people are already coming to us and saying, oh, we need a Databricks. They have heard somewhere, they went to some event, they don't know how to use it and what's the use case, but they say, oh, we need the Databricks, just do it for us.
Yeah, I mean, most don't, but yeah, I think they do. So yeah, I mean, nowadays, I think using old-fashioned technologies like a traditional SQL database or OLAP store, right? It is not traditional anymore. So now you want these fancy technologies to do distributed processing, put Trino on top, right? So make everything super complicated, but the data that you have is just a few gigabytes at the end. So it is, yeah. So the management is being sold a lot of stuff, which, yeah, you always have to do trade-offs to understand basically any technology has its own issues. Yeah.
But if you have to explain your job to, I don't know how they say that, to grandma, what do you do? How would you do that?
Yes, I mean, for grandma to understand this, she has to be tech savvy, I guess. Yeah, so basically, in very simple, right? So I help businesses to make smarter decisions. And to make these smarter decisions, there are a bunch of people. So some do the intelligence part, some do the data part. So I am now on the data side supporting the intelligence part to deliver the business value. So I hope grandma understands this.
Yeah, I think it's hard because sometimes I try to tell people because I try to go to a lot of events and I'm trying to sell
Yeah.
services, so I have to go to, and a lot of times I meet people,
Hmm?
and then if they are from tech background, they understand it very quickly. But if
Yeah.
they have a very business oriented background, then it's very hard for me to
Yeah.
sell, okay, why you need data, unless
Yeah.
they have heard from their peers, they know somebody, they have done it, somebody told them. It's like if somebody hasn't talked about data at all, it gets a little bit more challenging to go in and say, okay, why data is important for your organization and what the value you will get as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe let's move a little bit towards the use cases. What kind of use cases you have been working on, and what kind of challenges you face while working on different use cases? For example, everybody says, "Oh, okay, we have a lot of data, we don't know what to do." So,
Yeah.
how would you kind of take that?
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge, so in any organization, the data is in different silos, so players at different locations. And I think the biggest problem is to basically understand what this data is. Then the quality of the data is another big issue because data is growing over the years, and it basically accumulates a bunch of problems with it. And then once a new person goes in tries to understand data, it is much more difficult. So you need some support from the organization to understand what this is. So basically, data in silos, bringing this together, understanding this, combining all of this together to basically for a certain use case, right? This is probably the hardest part. Doing AI on top is still the easy part, I think, but bringing the right data inside with the right quality for the right use case in the right granularity, I think this is the most tricky part. So this is where I struggle a lot. And sometimes if you're lucky, you get good quality data. For example, if you buy from a third party vendor, they already clean it up for you. But if you have to mix something like this with your internal data, right, there you have a problem. Even for example, as an example, if you have a CRM system where you have some customers and you would have, for example, 10 copies of that customer in different databases, each one having a different address, and you wouldn't know basically which one is the right address. So yeah, so these problems there, yeah, these are the biggest issues basically. So if you get clean data, you're already lucky, but this rarely happens.
Yeah, no, I agree to that, and I've seen it again and again that the main problem is silos and then the
Yeah,
data cleanliness as well. And then obviously it comes that one group has its own semantic, another group has its own semantic, and then how they see same data point from a very different perspective. And then
yeah,
you're trying to bring that together. They
yeah,
cannot agree on the same definition as well. And they
yes,
wanted to, because change is hard as well. For one organization, they have been looking at a certain data point in a way throughout the years, another one is looking at a different way, then it gets very difficult to get them on board. Okay, now going forward, we're gonna make it look like this as well. Yeah.
yeah. Even for example, as an example, if you have a employee ID, right? So two different systems that you maybe bought from two different vendors, right? They would be representing the same customer with two different IDs. One may be string, one may be numeric, one may be alphanumeric, right? Now mapping all of them together, bringing them to a single location is already now a big problem. So these happen very often because these systems, they have their own life cycle, they evolve separately. And then once now you want to do some cross joins or combine data together, you end up with so many issues. And then with especially with the evolution of AI, where you want to ask just questions to an AI, now how would all of these semantics and mapping layers would come in, right? How would you understand that this employee ID maps to this one, and then this is another layer of problem on top. So yeah, so you rightly said that data, combining them, bringing them from silos, cleaning up, this is a big problem, definitely.
Yeah, I think we tried to come. We had a use case a couple of months ago where we had kind of two same data sets and two different, as you said, two different systems, and they were storing the data in two different ways. It was exactly similar, like not the employee, but same kind of use case, same data, but we couldn't join because let's say employee ID is not matching. One of them saving is like name in a different format, another one is saving in a different format as well. One of them has like last name comma first name, and then other one has a first name, second name, last name, and then they had different formats, different, and that was very complicated. You have to apply a lot of fuzzy matching and other things to do the joining as well. Yeah. So
Yeah. And I think the with the because all of these fixing these problems also takes time. and with the evolution of AI, right, with the speed of development has increased, so people now think that this should be solved really, really quickly. So this, I am now recently, this is what I'm facing, that the expectations have really grown up in all of these spaces, that they think that, okay, why this is not done, and this should be done much faster. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and like talking about AI, how it has changed your day-to-day work. Have you seen a lot of transformational changes? Has it helped or has it make it more difficult to meet the expectations?
So I think I um, this whole revolution of this chat GPT and then all of that, this started a while back. But at the start, I did not believe too much. I was still just asking some general questions. But over the years, especially this year, I realized that now it has been mature enough that I could basically really utilize this in my daily coding. And what I've seen, I've actually been amazed, because since the last 3-4 months, I've stopped writing any code. Everything is done by AI, and the only thing I've done is to improve my internal process of how I write code. So keep on improving my process so that I get the right thing from the AI. So it has really improved the speed on how I can develop, and especially an engineer with, for example, 15 years of experience, you slowly cannot basically catch up with all the new languages. You cannot write code fast enough, and this AI has really empowered me, because I could do what I used to do before in much faster time. I could really basically do new languages, new tooling much faster than before. And with my experience, I am actually maybe 2x the engineer than I was before. So this has really helped me. Even though sometimes I do feel that AI it is doing mistakes here and there, but I think this is more of a problem on my end to basically control the AI, give the right context, than the tooling itself. So I think it has really transformed the way I work.
Mm. But are you scared that your job is gonna go away very soon with the AI, like a lot of people out there are?
Yes. So yeah, so I think every you can say second week I am telling this to my family that yeah, this is now going into risky territory. Previously, I was also recommending doing computer science to my family members and others that yeah, this is a very good field, you should do this. This is also the number one discipline in also in Pakistan. But
Mm.
recently, I do not, I'm not sure anymore, and especially for new engineers. So yeah, yeah, definitely this is a bit scary, because you could automate a lot of stuff, and I think context is king now. And if you have the context, you could be much better maybe than an engineer. But of course, harnessing or controlling the quality is a totally separate aspect. Doing some production ready things is totally separate. This is where I still have to see how this evolves. But on a development level, this has improved a lot. But then I still have to go review thoroughly and make sure that everything is production ready. But I think once I start to see really production ready use cases, which for example companies like Claude are already saying that they're doing this in production, if that is really the case, then I think this is really scary. Yeah.
Mhm. And I think I was having a discussion with somebody recently as well, and they were saying, okay, should I spend more time learning new technologies, or what should I do because I'm scared? And I was like, nobody know in which direction this whole thing is going. Obviously, AI is eating up a lot of jobs, and maybe in terms of the development is getting better and better.
Yeah.
What's next? I think we couldn't foresee actually. So we would
Yeah.
know over time what will happen. I cannot say, oh, okay, you should learn this and it's gonna be safe in next couple of months or years as well.
Yeah. What has actually helped me a little sometimes to calm me down is to think that. So we started, for example, with assembly language, right? So machine language,
Yeah.
assembly language, then C, C++, or slowly higher level abstractions. And then we have these JVMs, and now there's a new compiler, right? So we give English or some other language instructions.
Yeah.
It compiles them into your higher level language, which then compile into lower level languages, right? So I see
Exactly.
this whole LLMs as also a way, as a compiler, basically. So then if I see it from this perspective, I then think, okay, there would be jobs for me to basically give instructions and everything around the coding, right? This I can
Yeah.
still do. Um, yeah, but then definitely I think things are moving very fast. So this is a bit concerning.
Yeah, that's true. And talking about the use cases, Do you think most of the AI use cases are holding back due to the bad data, or maybe you worked on a couple of use cases, but what are the common challenges do you think are while doing the AI projects or use cases?
The thing is that from my experience, teams, I mean, they do definitely do evaluations on if the data is there, what they want to build. Rarely I've seen something getting dropped actually, right? So they still go ahead and start to try to do it one way or the other, and then justify the numbers that everything is working okay, because the interpretation of numbers can be done in n number of ways. And then if you really want to justify something, you can do it. And this is what I have seen. So even if the data is not there, or of course data is you normally have some data where you start off, but if the quality is still not good, you still go ahead and try it. And then later, after the executions, use cases get dropped often. Before that, because people have conviction, so they keep on trying. This is what I've noticed. And with the, I think with the whole LLM, right? There, I think you do not even need so much data because everything is pre-trained, right? So these LLMs are already pre-trained, so you can just basically try to do a lot more use cases than you used to do before. And yeah, what has been your experience in this side?
Yeah, I think a lot of maybe smaller projects we do, they have not a lot of data, but then generally we go ahead and we collect all the data. And because a smaller project, maybe a couple of terabytes of data, then it's quick to kind of combine the data, clean the data, go through the whole process and build that. But for a lot of bigger companies, then for example, we recently started doing another project where they have 7, 8 different sites, and each of site has its own set of data. And then they wanted to have AI for all the sites, but then they don't have any kind of data layer at all, not even a data warehouse. They have only the operational data sets and that's it. So that's where they had an expectation, okay, can we have a whole AI implementation in next 1 month? And I was like, the foundation is missing. How can we make it happen? Actually, first we have to build the foundation and then we could have a lot of AI applications on top of it actually. So that's where we kind of started talking that, okay, maybe we could take one use case and show you what do we mean, build a data foundation, very specific data sets and everything. And then we have kind of whole data layer. And then after that, like all these gold layer or data marts, use case specific. And then we build the AI use case and then you will understand, okay, this is where we want to go actually. Yeah. But it's also sometimes, it depends who you are talking to. If you're talking to more of a technical person, then they understand. But if you're talking to more of a, I don't know, CFO or CTO, still sometimes they just wanted to talk very high level and they want to hit the deadlines. Okay, we need this by this date. Okay, then it gets a little bit tricky as well. Yeah. I was saying that talking about different projects, I don't know, without sharing any specifics of any specific project, you wanna share any example where you were like blown away with the AI use case, or maybe you did the project or you have been participating in the project where like, oh, okay, this is crazy. Now I should be scared more.
So in terms of classical ML use case or the LLM use cases, or
more recent AI implementations. It could be any use case actually.
I would not say I was blown away, but I was actually surprised that we could build something like this. So there was a use case, not to be specific, not to you can say something private. As an example, so you go on Facebook, right? Facebook collects a lot of data from you. And then Facebook basically, based on the characteristics of the user, it can recommend you some ads. And then you see these ads and you have a possibility that you might buy them. And something similar you could also do with enterprises, right? So you could collect signals from different enterprises to understand basically what they are looking for online. And then you could have signals inside your own company, and you could combine them together to understand basically what a certain customer might want in the next 6 months. So it inverts completely the way you do sales and marketing, because traditionally you would pick up a phone, right? Call, or somebody does a call or an email query to you. But here you already 6 months in advance are trying to predict what they might want. And then you could go extra lengths on this. What you could do is you could scrape, for example, a company website, and their job
Mm.
posting. From there, you could basically understand what they are basically looking for. If they're looking for somebody if they want for them a database, and your company does sell a database, right? So likely they already have some other vendor, and there's a chance that you could sell them or switch them over to this one, right? So you could also collect all of that, link them together with the main company information, and based on this try to predict. And then there are many interesting use cases. Then, for example, if they do not have anything from you, you can get a new customer, net new. If you already have a customer and they have bought something else from you, you have a chance to do cross sell. If they have bought something from you and then you have something similar in the same domain, you could upsell to them, right? And then you're already doing this 6 months in advance, because a company, when they try to do a decision on a technology, it takes them roughly 6 months to do research. They will maybe register somewhere online, and you could catch all of these signals, right? So now you can imagine the amount of data it involves, right? A lot of combining it involves, and then AI on top of this. And then you would be surprised that sometimes it works quite well, right? You could basically land customers with this. Yeah, and a lot of companies are trying to build this.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I heard these kind of use cases on individual users, but I haven't heard this about companies doing for other companies. But it seems like that's amazing actually, to sales and marketing, how they're changing. Actually, they're trying to predict that where the company is going, and already it's like predictive. They say predictive maintenance, but it's like predicting what the customer want in the future, and then you should be ready for that as well.
This, I think the term would be account intelligence. So
Account intelligence.
you would be surprised that if you look online, you would be surprised how many vendors there are, what data points you could get for companies, and then what you can do with them. And this data has a lot of worth. You might think that, for example, if somebody from your company, for example, searching online, you could do reverse lookups on your IP to understand basically which domain it is. And then if you went to a site to look up Postgres, right? So likely this is a signal that Haseeb is looking for Postgres. And then I could do something with it, right? I could sell you something else, right? Yeah, so it's quite crazy use cases, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's again a big data and AI use case as well. But you could build a lot of AI, but first you need to have the data layer. That's what we are talking about all the time. Yeah, you need to have a data layer to do anything with the AI as well.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes.
So, what do you think? Maybe kind of last question. That what is something that you feel underrated or unappreciated about the work you do as a data engineer?
I think so. This is very good question, and it touches a really good point, because so the data engineers, right? So they are like back office workers, right? So data engineer, they have to wear so many hats. So they're wearing the data engineer hat, they're wearing the architect hat at times, they're wearing the infrastructure hat, security hat, stakeholder communication plus communication with the AI people, and then the dashboarding, the warehousing layer, right? So they're wearing all of these hats. And then you bring the data, you do all of this, right? You prepare the data as you want, and then the data scientist or an AI engineer would come in, use it, build dashboards, and then go and present something, right? And then you are also powering a lot of the stuff behind the use cases, but you're always behind the scenes. And I think this is an underappreciated job, and it should be appreciated more, because I think this is what is powering a lot of the AI use cases. But it goes unnoticed basically, because the data engineer the nature of the job is that you have to wear many hats, and the task sometimes could be a little less exciting, right? Because bringing data from a database is maybe seems like a usual job, but doing a new LLM algorithm or trying out something new, or a new, classification algorithm maybe seems more exciting. So I think this job is definitely underappreciated. So
no, I couldn't agree more, because stakeholders usually doesn't see, they see maybe AI engineer or a data scientist who is presenting this fancy dashboard with a lot of numbers, and then stakeholders like, oh, this is amazing job. But they don't see all the work that has been done behind the scenes actually. Yeah.
Yes. So all data pipelines, all the denormalization to speed up every read query, right? So this all goes unnoticed. The partitions that you do, the warehouses you try to manage, the pipelines, and the alerts that you get, and then you go and fix. Yeah, this all goes unnoticed. I mean, of course, your team does notice it, but then from outside, from a stakeholder perspective, it doesn't get reflected enough.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me that image that you see on the internet a lot, tip of the iceberg that's above the water and then the iceberg is under the water. So it's like the same thing.
Yeah,
You as
I
a data
agree.
engineer is holding the whole thing.
I totally agree. Yes. And I have to say that by being in this job, right, I horizontally I learned a lot because I tried to do all of that, and then I basically learned a lot in all of these fields. And this was also the reason why I went into security also, because you also have to do these, right? Because you have to bring data from the databases. This could be personal data, right? This could be confidential or secret classification on the data, and you have to bring all of this, and you have to make sure that this is all good, and then exposing this to a via UI, via dev, via warehouse. You have to also basically be careful. So it also gave me chances to get into other fields that I was not interested in before, but now I really like, for example, like security or architecture.
Okay, that's good. And I think you mentioned that you recently moved from Germany to UAE. Has then there been a big cultural shift for you during this move? Is it a big weather change or some other changes you want to mention, share?
Yes, so I think the cultural change definitely, because I'm originally from Pakistan, so there were a lot of things that I missed from my original culture, which I can find directly here. So definitely a big cultural shift. In some cases, my life has improved a lot, and my family's life has improved a lot. But in other cases, it has also been just okay. For example, the work culture there was more you can say job friendly,
Balance.
and here,
Yeah.
yeah, and here it is more basically focused on the delivery. And the weather has been harsh, definitely. So recently, it's June now, so if you go between 12 to 4 outside, it's a bit difficult. In Germany, this would be the weather to go out basically.
Yeah.
But on the other side, Germany has in winter it can get really cold. So yeah, I think every place has pros and cons. So I basically weighed them and then decided to come here.
Okay, nice. It was really nice talking to you. Thank you for giving us your time and wish you luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Asif. So thank you for inviting me. The second thing is that I continuously see your posts on LinkedIn. So I'm really happy that you are doing this, and I wish you really good luck. And I think that you have taken a very nice step, and please continue doing this, and have a good day then.
Thank you.
Thank you.